Welcome to the Community Collective Podcast, a flip-flop agent production in collaboration with the Davison Area Chamber of Commerce. I am your host, Johnny B. Good.
Good morning. I am Travis Howell, the Executive Director of the Davison Area Chamber, and want to welcome everybody to another edition of the Community Collective Podcast. My co-host Johnny is, as usual, very busy selling homes. He is the original OG flip-flop agent realtor in our area. But I will say today I really get to talk to someone I've gotten to know just a little bit recently and am very excited. Today we are joined by Taylor Hollis with Cool Bean Coffee. Taylor, how are you today?
I am great. How are you?
Oh, good. It's a nice day. It's a little bit cooler out, so we have some windows open. I got my daughter off to cheer practice, so well, good. So, Taylor, one thing that we always enjoy asking our guest is, what is your background? What either education or trade skills, or what do you do day to day?
Great question. That is always changing, especially when you own a small business. Sometimes people ask you what your role is in the small business, and you're like making a list. But before I started coffee, I was a middle school teacher up in Reese Public Schools. And I have done that for 7 years in Reese. And before that, I did a year or two in Flint as well. So middle schoolers are my people. I really enjoy that age group. I am a little shyer when it comes to talking to adults, which people find funny. Like 12-year-olds, I can talk and entertain all day, but adults, I get a little bit more introverted. But coffee has really brought me out of my shell. And some of the listeners might know my husband owns Vice Armory in Davison. So I've been a part of that small business as well. And now branching into my own for Cool Beans Coffee. So for Vice, I'm usually the behind the scenes person. I do a lot of bookkeeping. There's a lot of keeping tabs on important documents when you own a gun shop. So filing all of that things and keeping that organized. And then coffee is just a whole nother thing, whole nother job category.
I would think that the coffee side was added later on because it sounds like you're you guys are very busy with between teaching and running one business. You probably need it to get your own coffee company going just to keep everybody running, right?
Yeah, for real. Yep. Especially becoming like teachers often joke that it's coffee is vital to everybody else's existence, including your students.
Yes, and I appreciate all that you do as a teacher. I grew up as a teacher's kid. My mom taught, she did high school and then eventually did K through 12 programming for about 30 something years. And then
Wow.
eventually I married a teacher. So I see all that you guys put into that and your passion. She is a elementary age teacher. So I get you go, you can definitely interact with that age group and you love and have a passion for it. But then when you get home, you're ready to relax and not do that other interactions sometimes because
Yep.
you all put so much work into that. But yeah, so now Cool Bean Coffee. I have been very lucky that I got to try some a couple weeks ago at one of the events you were at over at Vice Armory. And I will say it was amazing. I loved it.
Thank you.
Um, and what encouraged you to start your own business?
My husband was definitely a big part of that. So Vice Armory came first. We launched that in 2020, in January of 2020, right before the world shut down. So that was really interesting first step at a small business during the midst of all that. But I really saw my husband change as a person and opening a small business. And I've been a small part of that. He's done 95% of all of that on his own. So I really got encouraged by that. And I really enjoy teaching, but there are some aspects of teaching that you just can't control. So owning your own small business is it's a blessing and a curse sometimes that you get to control all of it. Sometimes that's really freeing and sometimes that is a lot of responsibility. So that was my first step is seeing, I always joke with Matt that with all the laws and regulations that change all the time, the gun shop was the most difficult small business we could ever start with. So any other small businesses seem like they would be a whole lot easier in terms of all of that regulation.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Now,
So,
and I'm sure there's some type of I'm sure there's regulations and guidelines you have to go through as well.
oh, absolutely.
So just keeping up with all of that. So when did you officially say, I want to start my own coffee company or business?
If for a couple years, it's been an idea of mine, but it's always been like al almost one of those things where it's someday when we retire, that's what I'd like to do, or someday when I'm done teaching, that's what I'd like to do. And then last summer, I decided that I wanted to have a job over the summer between school sessions. So I started as a barista at a local coffee shop, and I told the owner that I was interested in owning my own shop someday. And so I peppered him with hundreds of questions, I'm sure. So I learned a lot at the barista level there before I'd always just been a coffee consumer. And it was my thing. My family makes fun of me for this. Anytime we go on vacation, we'd find a local coffee shop and they'd get their coffees that they get anywhere else. And I would be like, what is the thing that I can't get anywhere else? That's what I want. Don't even tell me
Yes.
what's in it. I just surprise me with something awesome. And it was always really fun to see the baristas at those places get to just pick what they think is good as
Right.
opposed to making something you request. So that's where my love of coffee started. But then being a barista was my test to see if I actually liked doing coffee or if I just liked drinking coffee. So that was very enjoyable. And I did that for almost a year. So I continued to do that through the school year, just on the weekends. And then in September of 2022, I decided that I wanted to start doing my own coffee business. So I had somebody roasting for me to begin with, and I was just buying wholesale from them. And then in January, I bought my own roaster and started to teach myself through videos and reading and all kinds of things, teaching myself how to roast. And then that was really the biggest step in my business is being 100% in control. I didn't have to wait for my roaster to get around to my orders because I was a very small customer of his. If I got an order come in, I didn't have to delay shipping to a customer because I was waiting for a roast. So that was really freeing. And again, more responsibility because then I had to do all that extra work. But it was it was the step in making my business 100% me and 100% independent that it needed.
Yeah. Wow. That I know that sometimes business owners, it seems, always have to be learning what works for them, what doesn't, and
Mhm.
constantly staying up on new ideas. So that's really fascinating. So now, one thing that I would love to know, how did you come up with the name Cool Beans?
Oh, so that's a little bit of a funny story. So being a middle school teacher, I'm a middle school math and English teacher. So I naturally just have like this dorky, nerdy streak, I guess, that I really enjoy. So cool beans was something that my family has said for years. I don't know where it started, but it was like our little phrase when we were trying to be cute and dorky that we'd say instead of cool, you'd respond with cool beans. So when I was thinking opening a coffee shop has been like my dream for years and years. But when it started to become a reality, I knew that I wanted cool beans in the name just because it connects to my family, kind of branches into the little dorky side of my personality.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where
Wow.
it came from. And I get a ton of people that when they see my t-shirt, they're like, oh my gosh, I say that all the time. I'm like, I know. That's why I named it that.
It is. I love that. And it is. And to be honest, it's something every once in a while I say to my kids, and they do roll their eyes at me because I love it. So when I saw your name, when I first started seeing you guys pop up on social media or hear someone talk about it, and then eventually had, I was like, this is so much fun. And I can tell that you and your family love what you're doing and you're just having fun doing something you're passionate about and you're incorporating like little family jokes and everything like that, and then spreading that kind of happiness and what do you call it, dorkiness to everybody, which is
Hmm.
fun. Plus, you can't, in my head, you can't go wrong with coffee. And I'm like you. Anytime I go someplace, whether it's on vacation or we're traveling, I have to find some type of a little local coffee shop, and I do the same thing you do. I'll ask the baristas, "What is the drink that you like?"
Mhm.
And whatever they say is like, "Let's try it." Now, I am a black coffee drinker. I love it, but if I go someplace, I love just exploring new ideas and trying new things, especially if someone's locally they're making it. One thing that I found fascinated when we chatted before is you do something a little bit different and how your beans are, I guess, made. So can you explain to
Okay.
me your process? You do something unique, and I was very
Yes.
fascinated by it.
So I'm definitely still learning. So if there's anybody that's like a coffee pro listening, if I get it wrong, you can let me know. But that's one of the things that's been super exciting is when people ask me a question at coffee shows and things, and I'm like, I don't know. You can bet that when I'm getting ready for bed that night, I'm looking on my phone to figure out the answer because I am just as interested too. And maybe that comes with being a teacher, but I don't like to not know the answer. So that's where most of this came from that I have just learned on my own. So I have a air roasting coffee machine, or it's sometimes called a fluid bed roaster. Not a lot of people in our area, at least, do that type of roasting because it is a small batch. So it's considered an artisan type roasting. So my particular machine, there are some that you can get a little bit bigger, but even the biggest capacity, it's still considered small batch. Um, my particular machine can only do up to 10 pounds at a time, but that allows you to be able to really control your roasting. It is a lot of people don't know with this particular machine, it is not something that you press a button, walk away, and come back. It is almost like you're a coffee chef where you are standing at the machine and you are tending your roast the whole time. You're adjusting settings. They're not roasting at the right temperature. It is like 20 minutes a batch generally, sometimes a little bit less, and you are like attending it the whole time. But what is special about air roasting is that the beans are constantly moving while they're roasting. It's almost like popcorn when beans get to they have 2 levels of roasting. They actually physically pop like popcorn and shed a little shell, which you call a chaff. And not a lot of people know that if you wouldn't have roasted coffee, I didn't know that before roasting coffee. So they actually do that twice within a roast. The first time is the first sign of you can drink coffee immediately after that first pop or that first crack, and that would be considered a light roast. If you wait until the second crack, then that would be considered a dark roast. So between first crack and before the second crack, that's a medium. And then after that second crack, that'd be a dark roast. And those are like audible signs that your coffee is reaching different levels of roast. So that air roasting
Yeah.
is a little bit different because it produces a super smooth cup of coffee and also a cup of coffee with no bitterness if you do it correctly. So because the beans are roasting or sorry, moving the whole time they are roasting, they're all getting a consistent heat. None of those beans are sitting still during the roast, and so none of them are getting burnt. They're also not sitting directly on their heat source. This machine is like a popcorn machine where the heat is coming from a vent in the bottom. So the beans are resting on top of that heat vent. And once it starts blowing, they're cycling almost like a fountain. So that makes very smooth. And as long as you don't leave it too long past that second crack into a dark roast, it's not able to get burnt because the beans are removed and they're not sitting on that heat source. They're all getting the same heat. So that is what makes it very smooth. So that's my mission in coffee is to break that I don't know, that stigma that dark roast means bitter or dark roast means like horribly strong. It can taste just as good and have a full body without any of that bitterness if it's roasted correctly.
Interesting. Wow. That be honest, I love coffee, but sometimes I don't take the time to learn how different things are done. But I will say it sounds like the process you go through with air roasting makes your brand of coffee very unique, but it also shows the quality that
Mhm.
you're putting time and effort into this to make sure it is done a little bit different to make your product available for everybody and something that people will want to talk about after they've had it just because it is different. So that is interesting. So now when you have this going, are you sitting there saying, man, or your family saying, this house smells so good? It's our where we have it set up. So I know, like for our house, I'm the only coffee drinker, but when I brew it here, my family, oh, it smells so good. I love that. And I was like, do you want to try some? And my wife's like, no, I do not want that. But it is that aroma. I think we can all talk about it when you go into a coffee house, or if you're someplace where they are producing it, it smells amazing. So
Mhm.
what does your family say? Now, does you and your husband both drink coffee?
Yep. So it's in my household, it's just me and my husband, and he is a big coffee drinker. He's my official Cool Beans taste tester. He is a black coffee drinker, which I have become now that I've started this business, but I definitely was not a black cup of coffee girl before. But he generally likes the darker roast, where I like more of I like all of them, but I would prefer more of like a light or fruity roast. So I
Okay.
always get his opinion also, because I'm not somebody that would, if I have the option, go for a dark roast if there's other options there. And he is the total opposite. So he's a great taste tester. But currently, we renovated our basement in our home to be dedicated all to coffee roasting. So that was a big construction project, but I wanted to make sure it was very clean and sterile, and the only thing down there is coffee. I didn't want people to get like a funny idea where you're like, "Oh, I'm drinking coffee roasted in your basement." But it's very clean and official. And I'll tell you in a few minutes, because I'm sure you're going to ask me. That will be relocating soon, so I'll tell you about that in a minute.
Yeah.
But yeah, it smells so good. But the funny part about roasting coffee, so green coffee beans don't smell that great, but they don't like radiate a smell like they do once they're roasted. But if you open the bag of green coffee beans, it smells like grass, like all
Really?
natural, just
Yeah.
smells like a plant. But as you're roasting, I was just talking to my sister-in-law about this yesterday. She asked me the same question. They don't actually smell like coffee while they're roasting. I think
Okay.
they smell, if you've ever heard that Christmas song, like chestnuts roasting open an open fire,
Oh, yes.
that's what they smell like to me. They smell like something triggers a little memory in my mind about Christmas. And that's what I think it smells like. After a roast, it is suggested that it sits with contact to oxygen. So you don't put the lid all the way on the coffee container, you put it just slightly off, and you let it sit for about 12 hours. And the coffee beans actually continue to release oils after they're done roasting. So that really allows them to blossom into the good flavors and good smells. So the best
Okay.
part is after I'm done roasting and they're all sitting on the counter, like aerating, that is the best smell because they are fresh and you can really smell the the scents change over that 12 hours.
Okay. That's wow. That is really so fascinating. I think when I'm enjoying my cup of coffee now, I'll appreciate more how it was made. Now, one thing I did notice, you talked about the style of coffee you like. I was
Mhm,
on your website the other day and I noticed you have one that is called Tailor Made Blend.
mhm.
So is I'm guessing that is your favorite blend?
It is. Yep, and that one would be custom to cold beans. So you'll notice a lot of my other coffees on my website currently are single origins, which means like if I have a Guatemalan coffee, it is from Guatemala and there are no additives. So I don't do any additives to my coffees. They are 100% coffee beans and they're sourced right from where they say on the bag, with the exception of the blends. So my tailor-made blend also no additives, but it is a blend of several different of those single origin coffees. So there's no added sugars or syrups or flavorings. It's just a really fun science experiment to see which amount of which beans from around the world complement each other. So that tailor made blend, and obviously the name also goes back to that dorkiness factor. I really like when people ask me why it's called the tailor made blend, because when I go to craft shows and things, I'll wear a little name tag that says Taylor. And I'll say, because my name's Taylor and I literally made it for you.
I love it. That it gives it that personal touch and it adds a little fun to those people that
Yeah.
are talking to you at the shows and wanting to buy some of the product. So the next question you hinted at a little bit is can you share any future plans for growth of your business or what goals do you have? for Cool Beans Coffee?
Yes. I have some really exciting news, and I haven't even released this to my Facebook yet, mostly because our Wi-Fi went down and I haven't been able to get a Facebook Live video to record. But Matt and I just purchased a building in Lapeer on Davison Road near Elba Corners. And we are going to be relocating Vice Armory there in the future, which I know our Vice Armory fans already know. But I was just on the phone yesterday with some of the township people there, and my plan is to open up a small little kind of pop up Cool Beans within that new building. So it's not
Oh,
going to be a full fledged cafe, but I will be able to get some more of my coffee equipment for future full Cool Beans coffee shop someday. I'll be able to get some more of that equipment and kind of start experimenting with things like lattes and macchiatos and things like that, as well as be able to move my coffee roaster there. And that will allow me to put it in a space where my customers can see it. You can watch me roast so that you can see where it's coming from. I know some other coffee shops try to keep that stuff like a trade secret, and I don't want it to be secret. I want people to know why their coffee is special, and you can see it firsthand what goes into it. You can see that there's nothing being added to your coffee. So I'm super excited about that. It'll give me a lot
yeah.
more space, and then I'll be able to show people like what Cool Beans is all about, all the way down to the start of Coffee Bean.
Oh my gosh, I am so excited about this. So my wife and I and kids, we go to Lapeer quite a bit just because it's so close, and we have family pretty close to where this is going to be. So now I can always do the eventually when you're open and going, I can just say, "Hey, we're going to stop by there and get some coffee, and then we'll go visit our family."
Yep.
So that's some really exciting news. One is like for both businesses, I think especially for Cool Beans. Now that leads it to where people can have more access to it and see it. And that's a really good question right there. Right now, what is the best way for people to get Cool Beans coffee?
So right now, a couple ways. I have a website, which is www.coolbeanscoffeemi.com. That is the easiest way for people who are outside of the Davison Lapeer area, because that's mostly where I operate. So that I can offer shipping, or there's also a option because I had a lot of customers request this. There's an option that you can order on the site, and instead of paying shipping fees, you can choose to pick up at Vice Armory in Davison currently, but then at our new location. And then you don't have to pay any shipping. I just bring it on up to the shop and you pick it up at your leisure, and then it's already paid for from the website. Um, and it's super easy. So that's an option. You can also, if people follow me on Facebook, which is just Cool Beans Coffee Brewery on Facebook, I am at a ton of events starting this Saturday and through September. I think I have almost, maybe with the exception of 2 Saturdays booked at events, and then a couple multiple day shows, a couple Wednesday shows. So if they follow me on Facebook, I will post where I'm gonna be. This Saturday, I'm gonna be in Frankenmuth at their, it's not at their farmers market, but it's at the pavilion where they use for the farmers market. That's with the Michigan Makers events, and there is over 100 local small business vendors there. And I will be there this Saturday with my best friend helping me serve coffee with free samples. And I've got a couple new releases too that are not available anywhere yet that will be available on Saturday.
Wow, that sounds exciting. I know it's a lot of work when you are mobile and going to these places, but I would
Mhm.
imagine as a small business that's starting to grow and has bigger plans, this is one of probably the best ways for you to not only give that personal touch with meeting people, but then get your product out there for them to enjoy, and then they'll start following you and trying to find out more ways to get your coffee. So, plus, I'm sure you enjoy meeting so many people when you're out and about.
Oh, I do. And when people come to events like that, they want to hear all my coffee passionate spiels. When you're on just the website, sometimes people read the about us page and sometimes people don't. But when you're live and in action like that, people I hope can see the passion that I have for it. And I love when they ask me questions because that's I like to share my knowledge.
Yeah. So one of my other favorite questions to always ask when we're getting close to the end of the podcast is what is something you enjoy about our community and our area?
Oh, our business Vice Armory and how far Cool Beans has come in less than a year just speaks volumes about our community. People are super supportive of small local businesses around here, Davison and Lapeer. And especially, I think back to like how I started my coffee shop. Like, I didn't start a coffee shop. People didn't drive by and see a sign and say, "Oh, let's stop there." Like, I literally handed out business cards and have went to craft shows, and it has grown this much, and it'll be a year in September, so not even a year yet. And it's just crazy how much it has grown. I'm really excited moving to our new building because I think it's going to give us some stability and a little bit more control of our businesses and be able to do even more things. But our community events we've done at Vice Armory, we've been blown away by how many people have come out to support. A Facebook page is awesome for marketing, but I just can't believe how many people just seemingly out of the blue call me to ask me about my coffee, or I meet somebody at an event and they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is the place my sister told me about." And it's at a small little teeny farmers market that I talked to 100 people, and it just blossoms from there. So I know small business owners say it all the time, but truly it like purchases are awesome, but word of mouth is the biggest thing that helps people grow, and everybody in this community has definitely done that.
Great. Yeah, no, I love it. And I think the Cool Beans coffee story is something that kind of really resonates with a lot of residents that own their own local businesses or people who love to shop local and support local. This is a great way. And if you always need that, in my opinion, if you need that cup of coffee to get you going in the morning or throughout the day, Cool Beans coffee is the one to get to enjoy. So Taylor Hollis with Cool Bean Coffee, thank you so much for joining us today on the Community Collective podcast. And we're really looking forward to seeing you around and enjoying more of your coffee.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.